We live in a twilight world. Let's get on with it. Yeah, this is part 2. This is called Battle of Kiev, Exhibit B. So, just a quick recap, in case you haven't seen, Exhibit A. This is what I'm calling Exhibit A. About a month before the Battle of Kiev started, or the invasion of Ukraine started, the British military sent over 2 transport aircraft with high-tech weapons, yeah? I believe this was the Ghost Legion moving in to set up, all of their theatricality interceptions to create the illusion that 124,000 of Russia's most elite troops were in Kiev, which is obviously bullshit. Now, you have to remember that the British military as well have been in Ukraine since 2014. It's called Operation Orbital. Yeah, ever since the whole Crimea thing with Russia, this has been an excuse for the British military to expand and move into Ukraine under the guise of helping the little guy. But of course, the City of London, which is in England, which is in Britain, their oldest alliance going is with Moscow. So they're all connected at the top of the pyramid. It's only the people at the bottom, the masses at the bottom that get pulled into the whole thing of lines being drawn on a map and saying you belong to this country, you belong to that country, and getting, tricked and manipulated into live action role-playing a war. Anyway, let's look at the main thing, what we're going to talk about today, Exhibit B. Here we are. This is what I'm calling Exhibit B. This is my photograph I took at the time on the day. Let me show you a better version. England tears up the COVID rules and leads the world. We're first major... I'm pretty sure I should say we are the first major nation to leave pandemic behind, as PM says curbs to end this month. And look, they say it's Freedom Day, February 24. Now that day, February 24, does that ring any bells? Does that sound familiar? Of course it does, because the 24th of February 2022, this is the date they push for the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yeah? And by the way, I forgot to mention, this actually is from, as you can see up here, February the 10th, 2022. So once again, about a month before the war actually starts, Freedom Day, February 24th, England, land of the Angles, tears up the COVID rules and leaves the world. Now, how interesting that the day that the COVID scamdemic ends is the day that the invasion of Ukraine begins. Yeah? Now, just to be clear, I don't actually agree with this date. As you all know, I've been pushing this for a long time and bringing this up, but no one seems to listen. The actual real start of that point in the war was the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022, all the twos. Yeah, a once in a lifetime date when the Minsk agreement was broken. So the night before, Putin gave his speech about how, Russia's not going to leave their own behind. And then the next day, Russian forces moved into Luhansk and Donetsk. And Putin publicly said the Minsk agreement had ended. Yeah. So the Minsk agreement was a peace agreement which stopped the original conflict in the Donbass area. So once the peace agreement has been broken, you're back at war, right? But anyway, 2/2/2/2022. 2 days later, the fake date, as I call it, the so-called Russian invasion of Ukraine, the 24th. So once, the fact that it's 2 days after the 2222, it's all numerology. I'm not going to bore you to death with this one, yeah. I've spoke about this many times, yeah. But nevertheless, how crazy, right? Because for people that don't remember, yeah, we were in the scamdemic, the illusion of a deadly virus, the illusion of a pandemic. Yeah, people ask me for an example of illusion warfare. The scamdemic is my number one example, right? There was never a deadly virus. There was just the illusion of a deadly virus, which was manifested into life by our, maybe not me and you, but the masses and their belief and participation within the fiction. So they wore their costume, the mask and the gloves. They played their role, yeah? They queued up outside supermarkets 6 feet apart, yeah? They went along with a lockdown, and then, of course, a percentage of them, I don't know how many, went and took the saline jab, the fake virus for the fake vaccine, the fake vaccine for the fake virus, yeah? And, yeah, man, it was a very interesting time. But it wasn't going very well, was it? The scamdemic at that point in 2022 was not going to plan. I mean, who knows really how long they were going to drag that out for? Perhaps they had intentions to drag that out for another couple of years. Perhaps it was always the plan to end it on the year 2022. We don't know. We'll never know the answer to that question. But isn't it interesting, as the coronavirus scamdemic illusion operation is coming to an end, because it's backfiring at this point. Nobody's really buying it. Nobody's really believing or participating within the illusion anymore. Isn't it funny that out of nowhere, the invasion of Ukraine happens, and most importantly, the Battle of Kiev. Of course, the Battle of Kiev being like the biggest propaganda campaign of our times, right? The amount of gaslighting was ridiculous. On a scale of 1 to 10, something like 9/11 being a 10 out of 10, the Battle of Kiev was a 15 out of 10. Yeah? The idea that 124,000 of Russia's most elite troops were surrounding the city and were going to take it, right? And all the other bullshit that went with it, that there were saboteurs running around, murdering children, that it was raining missiles and artillery, all the other bullshit, that there was no food, there was no trains going in and out, that people were practically trapped in Kiev, just living in their basements as it rained missiles and artillery. All bullshit. None of it happened whatsoever. But when you think about it, it was a great distraction away from the coronavirus scamdemic. One of my favorite memes of all time, this one here, you've got the NPC having his COVID programming removed and being replaced with Defend Ukraine. And then, of course, I'm an avid Stand by Ukraine militant, super patriot. Yeah, literally overnight, from being the guy that was shaming everyone for not wearing a mask and not believing in COVID, to now shaming everyone for not standing by Ukraine. Yeah, overnight this happened. So you can kind of see why they put so much energy and attention into the fiction of the Battle of Kiev. It was like when a magician on stage, he needs a big kind of flash bang to distract the audience away from one part of the stage onto another, as a way to disguise his deception and trickery and smoke and mirrors that he's using for his stage magician illusionary stuff. Yeah, you get what I'm talking about. But of course, this is where they fucked up big time because, you know, the whole weight of the world's media, all in lockstep, pushing the idea of a deadly virus around the world. Yeah, pushing something that big, a deadly virus, upon the whole planet and everyone within it, to then suddenly take that apparatus and direct it all onto one city, Kiev in Ukraine. This is where they fucked up, and this is where I had the opportunity to go in. And it's very easy for me to smash this fiction apart, smash this illusion apart, because they're the ones that overstepped the line big time. Like, you would have thought someone somewhere within the Illuminati or whatever would have basically piped up and said, yeah, we're pushing this a bit too hard, don't you think? But no. And by the way, back to, talking about the scamdemic coronavirus, we saw firsthand that when it comes down to it, every government, all of the mainstream media, when it comes down to it, they will all start pushing the same narrative when they're told to. Yeah? The great revelation of the coronavirus scamdemic was seeing that ultimately they all are on the same side. They all serve the same master. By the way, it's raining. I'm doing this recording from a supermarket car park. Yeah, so you should be able to hear rain and cars reversing and parking around me, and people talking and chattering as they walk past my car. But yeah, man, like I just said, just to repeat what I just said there, to have the whole world's mainstream media from every nation, from every continent, pushing a deadly virus, to then suddenly focus all of that energy and attention onto one city, and the idea that there's a Russian force trying to take that city, yeah, man, easy for me to collapse that wave function. Very, very easy indeed. So that's pretty much it for this presentation, for this little recording. Yeah, there was never really a Battle of Kiev, not in the way that it was being presented. Yeah, there was the illusion of a Battle of Kiev, which I've discussed in this video and the last, how that was done, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but ultimately, it was a trigger event. Yeah, the first domino that set off the next series of dominoes regarding the war in Ukraine, yeah? A trigger event is what we call this. Like 9/11 was a trigger event because people believed 9/11 and consented to the response. This led to the 20-year war on terror, the invasion of Iraq, yeah, the war in Afghanistan and so on. You need that major trigger event to get the ball rolling. It was also, yeah, a massive flashbang distraction that moved, yeah, the NPCs, the normies, the brain dead, walking dead individuals, the background characters, into a new reality, pulled them out of the scamdemic, and now put them into the Stand By Ukraine fiction, narrative, whatever. Yeah, the next chapter in World War 33. In my opinion, the scamdemic, war in Ukraine, and even now in 2025, this whole fucking cost of living crisis bullshit where they're basically economically destroying everyone, all part of the same World War 33 storyline, all part of the false reality that we find ourselves in. It's all illusion warfare, my friends. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.